Good evening. A COVID crisis is engulfing the Royal Melbourne Hospital, with at least 7 patients, staff and visitors testing positive. It was sparked by a Shepparton man who had surgery 10 days ago, but he was not tested before his operation. Contact tracers fear the cluster will grow, and despite a surging number of cases infectious in the community, they deny they've lost control. State political reporter Mark Santomartino.
Intensive care, radiology and the Royal Melbourne's cardiac ward all exposed to an infected man from Shepparton.
That case wasn't there for COVID symptoms and wasn't showing COVID symptoms when they underwent surgery on the 12th of August.
And that man wasn't tested, not until he'd infected the elderly patient in the bed next to him, who in turn has infected her daughter.
There was no reason to necessarily test that gentleman prior to his surgery. We are now working with our health system to reintroduce pre-operative testing.
A protection hospitals adopted last year that's somehow been forgotten despite the more infectious Delta strain.
We expect that outbreak to grow, just as we expect the Shepparton outbreak to grow.
21 of today's 65 official cases live in Shepparton. 53 of those were out in the community while infectious, a number that continues to grow after more than 2 weeks of hard lockdown.
We are throwing everything at this.
10 of today's cases are mysteries, and it's feared many more are going undetected between Coburg and Thomastown, in Bayside suburbs and in the west, where wastewater samples are coming back positive, an alarm which was triggered 14 days ago at this industrial site in Sunbury.
We've had daily detections and no known case related to that area dating back to the 8th of August.
With 259 of Victoria's 440 active cases under the age of 30, contact tracers are pleading for help on social media.
Feel free to make a GIF or a meme of something I'm saying, but my message to everyone in that youth group is please don't catch up together until we get out of this.
There were more than 3,000 calls to the police helpline yesterday.
Alarmingly for us is that we've seen an escalation or in terms of private gatherings.
$5,500 fines were given to a dozen people caught gambling in the Docklands. 16 were nabbed at a party in Warrnambool, the same fine that's been dished out to 48 people at the illegal engagement party. Police promising 8 more are on the way.
The remainder of persons who were present at that party were children.
Children who, from Monday, will mostly be banned from childcare. Martin Foley clarifying that only one parent must be deemed an essential worker.
I can totally get the frustrations, but what I can also get is the concern of parents whose kids are sick. 1
of the 27 COVID patients in hospital is under the age of 5. A dozen are in intensive care, with 5 of those on ventilators. And the idea of an AFL Grand Final in Melbourne is on life support.
We haven't waved the white flag yet.
An official decision won't be made until the end of lockdown's 2-week extension. A lockdown that's struggling to curb the spread, let alone drive it to the zero that would allow crowds on September 25.
Right now it looks problematic. We would never seek to force the AFL to play the grand final in front of an empty stadium.
And Mark is at the Royal Melbourne tonight. Mark, growing infections in hospitals are of course a big concern.
3 of the 7 cases linked to the Royal Melbourne Hospital weren't even included in today's total of 65 cases. Alicia, on top of that, there are now 2 more confirmed cases in Shepparton. Another positive case linked to that Shepparton outbreak is presented to the Mansfield Hospital, and Wangaratta Health has since confirmed that they too are treating a COVID-19 positive patient. It seems Delta's spread through the regions is happening at lightning pace, and I should confirm that of the 27 people in hospital with COVID-19 that we learned about at today's press conference, not a single one of them was vaccinated, Alicia, and 18 of them were eligible to do so.
OK, Mark, thank you. Public sector workers will be paid to take half a day off to get vaccinated as an incentive for more Victorians to get the jab. But, as Eliza Rugg explains, the state government hasn't said how much the sweetener will cost taxpayers.
Classic muscle cars cruising into the old Ford factory at Campbellfield, showing off Melbourne's newest drive-through vaccination site.
It's very well run and it runs very, very smoothly, so I didn't have to wait long at all.
12 bays at the facility will officially open tomorrow, offering Pfizer for those eligible.
And over the course of the week, we will vaccinate up to 2,000 people, and over time, that will grow.
23-year-old aged care worker Marguerite Poulopoulos got her first dose at the Melbourne Showgrounds today, overcoming her hesitation about the jab.
It's been a little bit scary, I guess, being told we have to do it, but it's for the greater good.
All aged care and disability workers must receive their first dose by September 17. And in a bid to incentivise all other workers in the public sector, the government is offering a new sweetener.
Putting in place systems that will offer all public sector employees access to a half a day's paid time off to each dose of the vaccine they receive.
Taxpayers will foot the bill for workers to take time off.
I don't believe the question of cost is relevant in this case. We're talking about what is the cost if we don't get the state vaccinated.
The opposition says there are better options than money to get jabs in arms.
We've got to be having mobile vaccination hubs going out into communities where there's hesitancy.
Yesterday, more than 49,000 doses were administered across the state. More than 50% of Victorians have now had one dose, while nearly 30% are now fully vaccinated. People aged between 40 and 60 have been called out to come and get their vaccine as quickly as possible, with more than 60,000 available appointments this week, and 2/3 of them are Pfizer. There will be 5,000 spots free at the old Ford factory in Geelong and around 4,000 in Melton and Jeff Shed and in Frankston. There will also be thousands available in Wodonga, Shepparton, Warrnambool and at Sandown. Eliza Rugg, 9 News.
Victoria Police will consider shutting down the city and the transport network to avoid another anti-lockdown protest. The Chief Commissioner is vowing no tolerance, calling the demonstration one of the most violent in 20 years. Mimi Becker has the latest.
Officers under attack, forced to fire back at unruly and violent protesters.
That's not about protesting about freedom. That's criminal activity.
4,000 people taking over the streets, filled with fury and frustration at Melbourne's ongoing lockdown.
The vast majority, by and large, were men, 25 to 40, angry men.
More than 250 people were arrested, with around 260 fines handed out, worth more than $1.4 million. 9 police officers were treated in hospital. 1 is still being assessed and may require surgery.
1 police officer was assaulted, pushed against a wall, and when they went to the ground, were repeatedly punched and possibly kicked.
19 people will be hauled before a magistrate, while 2 people are in police custody and are expected to be charged with assaulting police.
We saw stubbies being thrown, we saw glass being thrown. People came armed. That seems fairly apparent.
Armed with shields, rubber bullets and pepper spray, the riot squad was prepared, but nobody expected this.
What we saw yesterday was probably one of the most violent protests we've seen in nearly 20 years.
Health chiefs dismayed by the blatant disregard of the law to stay at home.
That runs the risk of becoming a super spreader event.
With more protests already planned, Victoria Police say it'll look to not only shutting down the public transport network, but also stopping Ubers and taxis from entering the CBD.
That's a huge call, but it's one that we're now going to seriously entertain on the next occasion, because I'm not going to tolerate this occurring again.
Mimi Becker, 9 News.